On today's episode of Let's Talk Dog Business, we are talking about how to feel comfortable in the uncomfortable.
In the words of Sarah Whitehead, if you were to fly to Mars and there was no such thing as dog training and somebody needed some help with their dog, how would you do it?
It's a hard one to answer, though, isn't it? Because all your preconceived ideas come in of what you've always done. But arguably, I would go back to basics and look at who's the target audience, like who needs our help and what are they saying they're struggling with, or what are they looking for? Like, what's that pain or promise point of view? Mm-hmm. And then try and craft something that felt appropriate to meeting that need.
And would that involve a 6-week puppy class?
Definitely not.
Why not?
100% not.
Now you said that, why not?
Because, and I think this is where it's a bit more difficult for us to answer this, because we have very clearly made a massive shift in our way of thinking on how that's not appropriate for the audience that we're targeting. I'm so sorry, my voice is starting to go croaky again.
But let's think about it as objectively as we can. Let's try and look at it from that perspective of we're in Mars, we're trying to help that person. Would it be the first thing we thought of to do is stick people in a room together? Effectively, it's one-to-many. So you're able to do your training to many people, which is time efficient.
Yeah.
So there's a benefit of it. You're reaching more people. You are just your time versus potentially 6 to 8 other people's all at once. They're all maybe got a puppy, a similar age. That could be another plus point, that all the dogs are a similar age.
Weirdly, when you was talking then, I'm not sure how this is going to be taken, but this is where my thinking went. If we're wanting to reach many and do like a bigger market, like mass market type of experience or an event or whatever it is, there is no chance, I would think, if I was to put the pairing of the human and the dog in a room with multiple others to attempt to teach them something about their dog. My thought process was, if I was to go to a parenting class, you wouldn't take your children with you on the parenting class, because the parenting class is aimed at you as the parent. So you, as the parent, need to undertake the learning and digest it and educate yourself so that you can go home and implement it.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point.
Then if you wanted further support, ultimately you'd go into a one-to-one setting. Because you can't, do you know what I mean? Like, if you needed that professional to look at your child, you would do that in one-to-one. You wouldn't sit in a room full of other parents and go, can you just have a look at my child? And there would be an expectation or an understanding that every single child in that room is different. Even though you're all the same species, they're all different. And so many more variables get considered. What's the upbringing? What's the culture? Where do you live? Who do you hang out with? Possibly even like diet, like what are you eating? Any medical things. Like it seems to just come to people's mind a bit more, I think, if you look at it as a comparable. So arguably, if I were on Mars and I'm trying to teach dog owners to understand dogs, I don't think I'd have any dogs in the room.
No, and there are some that do a 6-week class without the dogs on the first week. I've done this before. And it's kind of that way of thinking of going, we need the human to absorb the information without the distraction of the dog, and because they need to learn first to be able to pass it on to the dog, which is great, which is a really nice thought process, but is 1 week enough?
I was going to say, like, why do we think that just 1 week is sufficient?
And that's where things fall down a little bit, isn't it? Because definitely from my perspective, I used to have dogs there on the first week versus dogs not there on the first week. There was a teeny tiny improvement, but nowhere near enough to be able to make a difference and be able to get that human understanding, all of the things that I'm trying to probably shoehorn into an hour.
So why did you only go with 1 week?
Because of the pressure of what other people were doing. And I was pretty much probably the only person in the area that did no dogs on the first week. And I always had to justify it to people. So my opening gambit, if you like, when people came into the room was I had a screen at the back for those watching, like a big screen at the back, and I'd do projector and I'd do some body language and I'd talk about communication from the dog and all of that. But the very first thing I'd say is, this is probably really weird to come to a dog training class without your dog. And everyone would be like, yes, it's very weird. We're intrigued and all that. And then I'd say, this is why, because it's really hard for the dog to learn and you to learn in the environment with all these other dogs around. And then, but from next week, that's what it's going to be like.
How did people receive that?
Really well. They were all in on that first week. They really accepted the information. They were really enthusiastic. They'd always got loads of questions. And the videos that I used to play were quite simple in pointing out, you know, the things to look out for with dogs, how they communicate subtly and all of that stuff. And people, it's like a little game that we used to play, like who can spot the things, you know, and people would be like, oh, I spotted them and stuff like that. So it was really enthusiastic. And then they'd all bring the dogs the following week and it was like they'd forgotten everything. Mm-hmm. And I'd almost, I'd talk about the layout of the room and the reason why people have got space between them and that we want to set the dogs up for the learning experience and things like that. Yeah, we get that. So, you know, not every dog is going to want your dog coming up to them. So we, you know, keep space. Literally all go out the window. And there's me going, what? I've just done all of that. And then they've just done what they've wanted to do. But like, let's look at that. Let's dissect that for a second. So like, I'm going to ask you the question. What do you think about that then?
Many things.
Go on. Come on, hit me with it. I know you're ready to dissect.
So I think there's a lot to look at with that. So you could look at it in terms of what messaging was going out in the first instance. So I think this is where I think businesses go off a beaten track a little bit when we're trying to do something new, in that we try it, but we almost try it half-heartedly.
A bit tentatively.
Or it's just a bit like, I won't go all in. I'll just shoehorn in it a little bit.
Well, just to interject, a backstory was I used to teach the Kennel Club Good Citizen classes before that. And then I changed it and it was called Fun Obedience. And the reason I called it Fun Obedience was because obedience was something that everybody wanted or thought they wanted. So I was using the language of clients when they'd inquire and say, I want my dog to be obedient. Obedience came up so much. I hate the word obedience. And I did then. But I used it to get that kind of, obedience. And then, this is another thing I used to say at the beginning, it's fun in capital letters.
I remember
And
this.
obedience in teeny tiny letters. And that's what I used to kind of USP it as, is that it is obedience, but it's loads of fun, relationship building, all of the great stuff. We're going to play games. It was like very much Absolute Dogs approach to training and stuff, which was I enjoyed. So you couldn't get more contrasting classes. So in my eyes, it was really different. But from someone coming into it, it was probably, well, it's just an obedience class, until I went, it's all fun and crazy, like Absolute Dogs. So, yeah. For anyone that's just listening, she's pulling the most strange face.
Right, okay. So people are searching for obedience classes.
Mm-hmm.
They land on your page They call you?
No.
They emailed you?
No. They'd book through the website.
So when did you tell them that it was fun and yay and it's all... did you actually say it's absolute dogs?
No.
But when did...
It was on the website. It was on the website, but it probably wasn't. The messaging was mixed, if I'm obviously looking back, if I'm honest, because it was, we're going to teach you the loose lead, the recall, all the usual stuff, the obediency things, and then laced in with some fun. But that was like in there. It was like woven in, but it wasn't the obvious overarching message that it was fun.
Yeah. And I think that's the bit where, looking at it as a complete outsider in this, and I'm on Mars now and I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, what is it then? Because if I've come to you for this, I don't really know what I'm getting. Now you've thrown in this other curveball of, oh, look, there's no dogs. But if that's not even in the messaging anywhere, that actually
I think
it's
might
about
have been somewhere.
Okay, so messaging being not telling them what they're going to get, but that messaging of
not the education piece. There wasn't that explanation of the reason why. It was just no dog week, so that you can learn the stuff, but it wasn't heavily like focused on that. Whereas if I know what you're going to say, if I was all in on that.
Yeah, if we're all in on like the reason why we haven't got them, and then actually made a bigger thing of that, instead of like, oh, we've just chucked in an hour and then
back to normal class kind of
normal
structure.
Class resumes, yeah.
So the thought was there to try and be different, but yes. I was scared to be different because, like a lot of you listening, it's really hard to do stuff that's different because the pressure of everything around you. And I always did want to break out of that kennel club. I hated teaching those classes, and I'll openly say it. They were boring. People must have enjoyed them, but I didn't enjoy delivering them, and it must have shown. And I didn't see the point of the assessments. Nobody wanted to do the test. No one, I think I had one bronze test that I actually had an assessor for, because no one wants to do that. They just want the things fixing with their dogs. And I was just like, and I saw that, I did see it. And I was like, I'm recognizing that I'm not just going to keep flogging a dead horse when no one actually wants to do it. I don't want to do it. So I thought that was quite, I was patting myself on the back for that, going, I don't like that, but I'll do this thing, which is different, but it wasn't different enough. It was different to what a lot of people were doing though. And I felt that was revolutionary. At the time, I thought that is what's going to get people talking about this. So the people that have come through it are going to tell everyone else about it. And you know what? That course was quite a popular course. I will say it did. People did enjoy it in a general sense. And it was probably the best of not a great other like choices in the area, probably. But yeah, it didn't deliver on the promise that it said it was going to. Yeah.
And it's hard, isn't it? Because this is where everything gets kind of interconnected and interwoven. And it's interesting because for me, I don't know if it's my background was so completely different that I never fully immersed myself, or wasn't immersed in air quote dog world long enough when I was doing my business bit. So I just looked at it completely differently. Having said that though, even though I was in it for a smaller period of time before I started making big changes in my offering, I still felt the pressure of this is what you do, because ultimately I'm learning from others that are doing the same. So it was very heavily weighted on 3 sessions, 5 sessions, the client picks, do a consult. And those were the 3 things.
But you pretty much always did one-to-ones, right?
Yeah, I only went straight in on
You
one-to-one.
didn't do the traditional class thing, did you?
No. It never appealed to me.
Which was really unusual for somebody not to do something like that.
Yeah. No, I just went all in on one-to-one and just got really fucking good at delivering one-to-one. Admittedly, yeah, like the mechanics, like the tangible aspect of that delivery was shit, because it was just, do you want a consult? And then I'll never see you again. Or do you want 3 sessions or 5 sessions? And that was all it was based on.
But the fact you saw that one-to-one was the better way of teaching it, in your opinion,
Yeah.
and you knew that the client got the most out of it that way, learning and absorbing information.
Yeah. So I just never did it. I tried it a couple of years later when the business was in like its boom season, and I'd nailed that one-to-one bit. So I got it so right that I was like, now let's add in an additional service and let's see if we can help more people. But I added in a class in that I knew I needed the long term, because that's what I was getting from the one-to-ones. I was like, it wasn't a case of I was seeing you once and it was done. People, I was seeing them for about minimum 3 to 4 months. So the class we put on, I called it a young dog program. And I actually ran it for 12 weeks. So it was a 12-week puppy class, essentially.
And that was a group.
That was a group setting.
Yeah. Outside.
Yeah. But I hybridized it, if that's a word.
Oh, that's a new one.
Hybrided it. Did it.
I'll be Googling this
I don't know.
after, seeing if it's a
It
word.
was a hybrid.
Yeah.
There we go.
You could have just said that.
So with that 12-week puppy class program, young dog, whatever we called it, we did, each person got 2 one-to-one sessions for extra support.
Yeah. So 12-week program, 2 one-to-one sessions within that program.
Within the program.
And would that be like, so did you do like 12 consecutive weeks and then you'd switch out 2 of the groups for the one-to-one, or would they get the one-to-one and a group?
Yeah. So they had 12 group sessions, and then they could book in 2 one-to-ones
to fit
within
wherever.
that 12-week period.
Which that's revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
So we did that. We created a Facebook group. So all of the people in each group, I think we had two classes running alongside each other. I can't remember how many we had in them now. About 10-ish. But we had the space. It wasn't in a hall. It was in a secure field where it was like 2.5 acres. I think.
3, I think.
3, yeah.
3 acres, I think.
So we had the space. So I was like, worst case, we can section it off, and I had some help. And we had that Facebook group. And then at the end of each session, like, we set them some growth work and some practice and some things to go away and do. And we set them like a little fun competition that if they posted their videos, so the person that was most active in that group and posted their videos and helped others by commenting and offering support, at the end of it, we put them into like a little prize draw, and they won something. It was either like a hamper full of treats, or they could, what else did we do? I think it was like top prize. Maybe they could have got an extra one-to-one session. Then it was like some treats and stuff. But do you know what I mean? Like, it was a little fun thing, and it worked really well. Like that, the little Facebook groups, like pop-up groups, were really good.
And then the Facebook group would finish once the course would finish.
Yeah. So everything just got put down, and then if they wanted to continue their journey with us, then they could enroll on a one-to-one program, and it worked really well. I stopped enjoying it though, because I didn't feel that we were attracting the right people. And my learning from that was, because I was, at that time, because I was using the language that, actually, no, I lie. The first cohort was brilliant. I got that perfect and I loved it and it was great. And then pretty much 80% of that group enrolled with me on a 12-month one-to-one coaching program straight off the back.
Oh, wow.
So we went straight into that.
You did do a good job.
So I was like, yes, love this. Let's do it again. And I tweaked it because I wanted to test it. And I changed the wording from young dog program to puppy class to see if I could attract more people. Because I thought, this works really well. Let me see if I can attract more people, because this is the language that people are using. And it sold perfectly. And bearing in mind the investment was, I think it was about £650 per person to attend. So it was a decent delivery. As soon as I changed the wording from young dog program to puppy class, people did the investment, not a problem. But the quality of the client dropped significantly. And I hated every single week I had to turn up to that. And I was like, right, I'm not doing this again. But I'd committed to doing my best and delivering that 12-week course. So then we went back to what was working, which was young dog program. But in the midst of all of that, and it wasn't a huge amount in the grand scheme of things, but my messaging had changed. So I'd almost lost, because the messaging wasn't strong enough in the first place. It was strong enough to get in one cohort, but it wasn't strong enough to maintain the business, if that makes sense. It wasn't out there long enough. It wasn't consistent enough. It was a short burst. And then because the messaging went into puppy class and suddenly that spread everywhere, then actually because the clientele weren't, their expectations when you say puppy class to what they were getting was very different. And arguably you could say that the standard was higher. However, they didn't feel like they were getting value because the way I was delivering it was aimed much more at the person and not march your dog around a field doing sit down stays, loose lead, all of that stuff. So they wasn't getting a very good experience because it wasn't what they thought they were being sold. And vice versa, what I was selling, it affected both of us. So it didn't work and I hated every single moment of it. So I was like, do you know what? I don't really want to do this again. Let me go back to doing what we do really well, which is one-to-one and creating that customer connection.
So one thing I've noticed from what you've just said there, and people listening might be feeling the same, is like, how many times have you changed something? How many times have you done something for however long and then you've gone to something else and gone to something else? Now, for a lot of people listening, I know that will be a really scary prospect because we get really comfortable in what we do and how we do it and the structure of it and the way we like to, as humans, to keep ourselves safe. We like to know what to expect and we like to know the outcome of how we're going to feel at the end of it, and hopefully the owners are going to feel at the end of it. But that sounds to me like you did lots of changes and testing. So what would you say to those people who are probably, I'm guessing, thinking horrified things of like, but how can you keep just going from one thing to another? How do you do that and be okay with that? Because I remember doing this and changing my business model and the way it was structured, fucking scary to actually go. And I remember talking to you and going like, what if this doesn't work? Like, what if I don't like it? What if, and you were like, change it then. Like if it doesn't sit right with you, it doesn't work or it doesn't feel right in any way, change it. And I was like, what? You can just change it again. You were like, yeah. And that is really, for me, that was so scary to think like, I like the predictability of knowing what I'm doing inside out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think it's worth almost caveating this answer with, don't change things for the sake of it. And I think lots of change regularly is not a good thing. However, if what you're doing is running the same pattern over and over again and still getting the same results, which are the results that you don't want, or you still don't enjoy it, or you don't like it, you doing more of that is not going to change anything. So something has to change somewhere if we're in that pattern of feeling frustrated or whatever it may be. So for me, I looked at it and went, I've gotten really, really good at one-to-one. Like I've got a decent predictability with it. Now, how can I improve that service even more? That's still in line with what we're doing. And I think I actually did I did this work first. So I changed my ad hoc sessions into thinking, what am I finding here? And I really lent all in on what my customers were saying. And for them, it was very much, they loved the support. They loved getting to know us properly and the fact that we got to really know the dog in all situations. And I was like, okay. So to me, this is just screaming out working long term, which I know we talk about quite a lot. So I tweaked it to just start packaging it up as a longer term thing initially. And that worked really well. So I was like, okay, perfect. So ultimately, all I'm doing is just listening to what the clients are telling me and providing them with a service that they're asking for. So then in order to test your business again, because your business is just like a big science experiment, is how I look at it. I was like, I've got a hypothesis. I need to test it. Do I want to do puppy classes? Don't know. Never done it before. Let's try it. But let's do it in a way that actually feels appropriate for me, because I don't want to do a typical puppy class. So I went in going, well, this is what I want to do. Let's see if there's a market for it. So I had the initial idea, didn't craft anything, didn't book any spaces, I didn't have all the stuff figured out. I just started to put some messages out there and go, young dog program, 12 weeks, really understand the dog, like some key points. And I had loads of people message. I was like, okay, people, somebody wants it. Let's try it. See what happens. What's the worst happens? Let me see if I can sell some. If I can sell some, then I'll find a venue. I had a venue in mind, but then I was like, yeah, then I'll put the dates on. And we just went from there and I tested it. I was like it, worked really well. Now, how can I replicate that so I get more people? Because at the time I was like, ooh, and I'd be lying if I didn't be honest and say the thought didn't cross my mind of going, oh, this could be quite lucrative, like £650 per person. I could do less time if I fill that because I'm seeing more people in the same space. Rinse and repeat that. So how can I get more people in? Because it was a fair amount of work to get those first 10 in. But then that's when everything went off and I was like, right, my target audience are not people that would search for classes. And then I just lost the love for it, to be honest. Like those two groups, we put two groups on with the class approach and it just killed me. I was like, I hate this. Absolutely hate it. I don't want to do it. I want to go back to my connection piece with the clients and really getting to know them. So just test it.
But it just shows the confidence that you had versus what I had. And obviously we know because we have had completely different journeys to get to the point of starting dog training.
Yeah.
But it just shows, doesn't it, that journey that we've both gone on is the outlooks of how to do a dog training business was so different.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I would have been like, there's no way that I would think that would work. There's no way I can do that. And there's no way that I feel confident to be able to just go, like it's that thing about segmenting classifying things separately, like behavior and training, like people charge different amounts, don't they? And that's typical of the industry. And we've all done it. Like we've all thought that that's what people want. But
I did it.
Do they need that? That's our thing, isn't it? Like that comes from us going, people need to either be signing up to a behavior program or a behavior thing or a training thing. Well, we've had this conversation before. You can't possibly do one without the other. How can you be a dog trainer without knowing about behavior? And how can you be a behaviorist or behavior specialist or whatever you want to call yourself without knowing how to train a dog? It's one and the same as far as we're all concerned, but we get very lost in that classification of like behavior. And no, I can't charge that for training because that doesn't warrant training. But it always tips in. Yeah. Like even if you're going for a standard recall problem, there's always going to be some behavior that you're going to have to deal with there. So what do you suddenly say? Like, oh, hang on a minute, you've crossed the line now. We're into behavior. Like I need to up your fit.
Yeah, it's
like
so
it's almost
weird,
like that
isn't it?
ridiculousness sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like figuring out where's that come from? Why do we feel the need to do it? But I've totally been there myself and know that that's what we're kind of almost conditioned to feel like and do. So I get that all of that, like people listening to you there talking are going to be going, what? No way. Like I can't do that.
See, it's so weird because I'm talking and I'm just like, I don't see what's so big about it.
And now I don't see it.
It's weird though, isn't it?
So don't see it now because I've changed so much as a person. I can see it like eyes wide open now. But those blinkers were fully on and they weren't like, and I would have classed myself as somebody who did things a little bit differently. So like there are people who don't do anything differently outside the box with dog training. And I think I did try. I tried. And I would have been like, no way. Like, but I got to a point where I needed to change because I lost the love for dog training. Like when I met you, I was like, I can't keep doing this. And that thing you talked about, that hamster wheel, of like, that's where I was. And I was going to send myself crazy if I carried on doing it. Because for that variable reinforcement of the occasional client that smashed it out the park and was like, did everything I said in puppy classes, did all the homework, came back and their dog was just like settling on a mat, chewing a chew. And then you got all these crazy dogs around it. Like that was enough reinforcement for me to go, but I'll do another one and I'll do another one. And there's those people, they get something out of it. What about the 5 other people that are really struggling in that class? But I didn't see it. It was like there was this fog and I was like, but how do I get out of this? Like, what else is there? And I'm pretty sure there's going to be lots of people thinking the same thing here.
But you know what? I love this because I think this is why we work so well together as well, because actually we agree on all the same things. We just have different ways of coming at it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty actually of the way everything we deliver now, both in our training business, and in Canine Business Academy, because you've got two, I don't even want to say like different personalities, because I don't feel like we're different personalities. It's just a different way of looking at it and the experiences that led us to those executions. And I think that that's why everything we do now works really well, because there is so much consideration about everything. And I'm still on that journey, I think, of opening my mind up to trying to, I get it. I get when you say to me that it's so alien to do that. And, you know, we blanket people into this whole box of, but your way of doing it is so different and it's so out there and it's all of this. And I just really struggle to see it. I just doesn't enter my brain at all that it's revolutionary or anything. And I think on the flip side, to you, it's then going like, what? But it is, but it's great that you don't see it like that. And it's all, so yeah, it's just really, for me, it's that thing we're always coming back to, like, try and get comfortable in the uncomfortable, because everything that you do in business is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable at some point. If it feels comfortable, we're not growing. And some people may arguably say, well, I'm quite happy where I'm at and I don't want to grow. I'm like, cool, totally fine. You do you.
So, interestingly, know what I said earlier about I like to know what I'm doing. You know that I'm like that anyway. I like to know what I'm doing, like to know where I'm going. But I do get bored. I get bored quite quickly with things. So as soon as I'm comfortable, I'm like, right, what can I do next? So I'm almost like, I don't know, like a diluted version of that, and going like, I need to be comfortable. I need to know what's what. I need predictability on things, because I do. But then once I've got it, I'm like, cool, I've got that. Right now, what can I do to make that better? And what can we change? And what can we, you know? So it's almost like I was there, but I needed that massive push.
Yeah.
And I think maybe a lot of you listening are like that. You've got that kind of like, yeah, I kind of need to know what I'm doing. I need to be comfortable. And then I need to be pushed, maybe. But I didn't know I needed to be pushed until I was pushed.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yes, somebody's making me feel outside their comfort zone, outside my comfort zone. And I could feel the growth. I could feel myself like looking back. I'd almost like stop at every stage and go, oh my God, I can't believe I've done that. Something stupid, like just restructuring how I did things, was like a massive achievement for me to go, do you know what? I can do this. And I can be a little bit, I was going to say like zany, what a word.
Zany?
Couldn't think of the right word, but a little bit different. And I liked it. And like, so you're kind of just all in with all things like that, but I just have to be comfortable first, and then, but my feeling comfortable gets quicker. It gets a lot quicker these days, doesn't it?
Oh God, yeah.
From, you know, it used to be like, I need to take my time and just get to grips with it and then do it 50 million times and then I'm comfortable. Now I'm like, yeah, I got that. Right, let's do the next thing. So that's my kind of like, my thought process is around it. With that, I would get bored. And as soon as I wanted to do the Kennel Club thing, I got, can't even remember now what, God, it's that long ago, how you even become approved to be a Kennel Club. I think you have to get assessed or something. And I was like, yes, I need to do that. did a few courses and went, oh my good God, what the hell is this? Like, how boring is this? And, people who do it and enjoy it, I'm sorry, but I just didn't.
And that's it. And I think everybody's on a sliding scale. Like, your business is totally you. It shouldn't be anybody else. It shouldn't feel like I could go to you and I could go to you and then I could go to you and you're all offering the same thing, but it should still feel different because of your personality injection. I'd say a good majority are sole traders, so it's just single person businesses, but you should feel different to your neighbour down the road. That doesn't mean you have to necessarily offer different services, but your messaging should be all about you. You should be able to go, oh, hi, I can see how you're different to you and I can connect with you for these reasons and connect with you for those reasons. And neither are right and neither are wrong. But getting good at feeling comfortable in the uncomfortable, and that uncomfortable bit is totally bespoke to each person. Because you'll be on different stages in your journey. And then, like you say, like for you, you got bored with the uncomfortable. With the comfortable, sorry. So you got bored with the comfortable, and that's why you pivoted and you wanted to try these different things. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. But I also think people could relate to, I'm not comfortable with the ad hoc nature of everything, so I'm going to keep adding in services to try and make it more comfortable. So we're coming at it from a different place, like the uncomfortness to try and create the stability.
Yeah, that.
But getting good at trying to ensure you give yourself the skills and the knowledge that when you are in the uncomfortable, how to push past it and get to the other side. Because staying in it isn't necessarily an option. But we need to adopt the skills to be able to go, right, I'm not good with where I'm at for whatever reason. I'm either not bringing in enough money, which is making me panic. I am either, like, business is doing great in the sense that I'm getting a load of clients, but I'm working every hour, like every available hour. And now I can't physically do any more. And I'm burnt out and I'm tired and I'm exhausted. Or you're in that in-between bit where it's like, do you know what? You get some really good months and it can see you through. And then you have some bad months, but you've got enough, do you know what I mean? Like, you can balance it out. And then you get to the end of the year, like, do you know what? I made it. And I got to work with dogs. I got to purchase a CPD course. I got to have the odd weekend off. I'm good. But there will still be some discomfort in all of that.
Yeah. See, I was made enough money for me, for what I wanted and what I needed. It was damn hard to get that money every month though. So I never had the fear of not bringing enough people in. I filled my classes. I pretty much filled everything I put on in advance. And that's like, the reinforcement was there. But it was bloody hard to do it. The late nights, the hard graft, the running around, putting chairs out, taking them down again, all the stock that went out, all the stuff, like, just the margins were so low on everything. It just, with the whole venue, the venue fees, with the stock that I brought in, tiny margins, like you get them at trade, but it's hardly any cheaper. And you're going, yay, I've sold like a toy. What, you've made like £2? Great. But for me, it was a sale. I was like, oh yeah, I've made a sale. And all of these sales in one night, like if I used to sell chews and they were really popular, so like a pick a mix of chews.
I remember this.
Do you remember? And they used to go, like, I couldn't keep up with the demand of those chews. Like, I was always buying chews in from the wholesaler. But like 5 chews for £5 or something. And they'd go home with their bags of chews and be like, yes. But then when I worked it out, I've like made £5 for a whole bag of chews. And I'm like, it's not, but I didn't, again, I saw that I was making money. So I didn't sort of, although it was really hard graft, I was like, I'm still doing it. I'm still being reinforced by some income. And yeah, it was my husband that was like, Vicky, you are running yourself ragged. You are just overthinking everything. Because I would be one of those people, which I'm sure lots of you can relate to. oh God, I could have done that better. Oh, those people there, that barky dog, what should I have done? Like, should have gone over sooner, should have like separated them off a little bit. Oh, and I'm predominantly had periods where I did have some people working for me, had some volunteers that used to help. Predominantly throughout the 13, 14 years I did classes, it was just me running myself ragged and getting home at stupid o'clock. And it was really hard. So so the money side of things was okay in my head. I never had any goals. I never had any financial goals or any like me goals that I wanted to reach. It was okay. And I think this is why a lot of trainers or dog professionals in a general sense, stay with what they're doing, because the pain isn't maybe enough yet until it breaks, until it reaches a point. And I reached that burnout point and I didn't recognise it. My husband did. He's like, Vicky, what are you doing? Stop a minute and look at what you're doing. You are a busy fool. I was like, he's right, I am.
But if you're not uncomfortable with it, then you're never going to change.
It was doable.
You're never going to change.
Yeah.
And this is where I used to beat myself up a lot, because I had big goals to really grow it into a big business. But not like a big business that for the sake of a big business, like a big business, like I've got a good mission here, like we've got something that's going to work really well. And I kicked myself because for like 3 years on the bounce, I never achieved the goal I wanted to. And if I was being brutally honest with myself, it's because I got comfortable.
I remember you saying this.
I was like, do you know what? The money's there. The model's working well. It's not pushing me the way it used to, because I built it to be like, it was consistently earning just shy of 6 figures. So I never hit the 100K mark, but it was just shy of it. But that was with just me and one member of staff. And actually I wasn't doing a fat lot of delivery. So I was like, I was super comfortable.
So imagine if you were doing the delivery, like that could have easily hit that.
Yeah. But because I'd set everything up in the way that worked for me, I was like, do you know what? It's all right. I'm not. Oh, yes. Okay. We needed more cash, ideally, to pay bills and stuff like that and get out of the debt and everything. But the pain point wasn't there enough to make anything different. Mm. So it's, it's real. And that felt uncomfortable to me. I was like, oh, I'm actually uncomfortable in the comfort. Mm. That's what I don't like. So it's just, it's getting good with feeling a bit about something.
And now I love feeling that uncomfortable.
Like, I think it's great. I think it's, you learn so much about yourself when you're in that uncomfortable bit.
Yeah. And the uncomfortable you can feel angry in it. Like, I felt angry in it. I've gone, I can't believe somebody's putting me in this position. Like, how dare they ask those questions? How dare they draw that out of me when I maybe don't feel ready for it? But I was always ready for it. But at the time, I'm like resenting that person, whatever situation is, whether it's us making a big investment, somebody is there, not saying buy it, but they're going, like, if you invest this money, it's going to all be great. And I'm like, can't believe you're making me like feel scared like this and feeling like I want to do it, but I don't. I want to do it, but I don't. Now I'm just like, come on, I crave that like a bit of uncomfortable, because I'm like, I know what's on the other side of it. I know it's good on the other side. So totally changed my outlook on it.
So what's your advice then to round off this episode to someone who is feeling like something needs to change in their life at the moment or business? And I think they're both interconnected.
Yeah, it's a hard question to answer because everybody's going to be in their own individual situation, aren't they? Mm-hmm. But I think really, if there's something you're not enjoying in your business, something about the way you're doing it, what you're delivering, if you don't feel passionate about everything you do, then something will need to change, because you will keep going around that hamster wheel and eventually something is going to break. Inevitably, something will break. So that's your opportunity to stop and just go, I can change this. I can absolutely make a difference here. And it's not the forever thing that, oh God, it's this perpetual like cycle. You can change things.
Yeah.
So I think that would be my advice. Don't think it's never possible.
Yeah. I think mine is you don't have to suddenly destroy everything you've built. Because I think you can almost use it as a bit of an easy excuse, can't you? So it's if you're really not happy with everything. So like using your scenario, like if you wasn't happy with doing all the classes and all the different services, could have literally just burnt it all down and gone, nope, fine, forget it. I'll just start again. Possibly even start up a new company. So there's nothing to do with you. Could have literally burnt it all down. Mm-hmm. And change doesn't always need to be that drastic. If it feels like it's the right thing to do it. Go all in and do it. If you're confident enough that it is the right thing. But you can just start off small as well. So even if it's going, okay, do you know what? I'll feel a bit uncomfortable by maybe letting this, I don't know, for example, let a puppy class run to the end. And then just don't advertise another one and see how else, like allow your brain some space to go, how else could we fill that financial gap now? Mm-hmm. What's going to work well for me? What's going to work well for the clients? And just allow yourself some space in the uncomfortable, because I personally, and maybe not everybody would agree, I don't think any brilliant ideas come from when you're comfortable.
Well, CBA has been based on being uncomfortable all the way through, hasn't it?
I also feel like I need to caveat that as well, because depending on how uncomfortable you are as well, you could make some pretty piss poor decisions.
Yeah, we're not saying going like just.
So if you're on like breakdown mode and you're on the verge of just, oh my fucking God, everything just needs to, don't make decisions in that headspace either. It's that fine little gap in between.
But it's the pause and the breathe and the gap in between.
Yeah, it's that special little gap, isn't it? It's like if you're happy with where everything is, or maybe not even happy, but it's fine.
It's doing its job.
It ticks along, it pays the bills, you're not overly enamored with it, but it does a job and you feel like it could be worse if you had to go into a paid job type of thing. Yeah, you're not really going to do much in that headspace. And then on the other extreme, if you are, oh my God, my life is over, it's just too busy, I can't see the wood for the trees, all of that, you're not going to make good decisions there. You need it in between those 2 points to go, okay. So hit pause on both and then just ask yourself these questions of like, how happy are you? And I think happy is a good word to kind of gauge your business, because, I don't know, in our opinion, it should make you happy every single day, even when it's hard.
Yeah. CBA makes us really bloody happy.
Yeah, honest to God, I just, how many voice notes do we send to each other of going like, do you know what? I'm exhausted. Yeah, it's like I'm exhausted from today. Like the coaching calls we have are amazing. Like these podcast days are amazing. They're draining at the same time, but I wouldn't be doing anything else.
No. If this is our job, this is the best job in the world.
Yeah, it's great. So I hope that has given any help to anybody. Who the fuck knows?
As always, we would love to hear how it's landed with you. We do get such amazing messages from people listening to these podcasts, and we absolutely love hearing these. And if it's not positive, please reach out as well. Like, we're not saying we only want positive messages. We want
it's a conversation.
Feedback. We want tell us how you feel. Because that's, again, we want to be able to tailor these podcasts to what you need help with. So if there's something that we haven't covered and you're feeling it, tell us.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, we're happy to go there. Cool. If you've liked today's episode then, please do give us a like, follow and share.